Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kim Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Durham, and I'm your host of the podcast Mediumship Moments. I'm a second-gen psychic medium, and I talk about what it's like to be a psychic medium. And today, for my series, Mediumship and Murder, I'm thrilled to have my guest with us, Melanie Lamb, who is an amazing tracker, cadaver dog specialist. So welcome, Mel, to the podcast. Hi, Mel. How are you?
Hi, Kim. I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm good. Mel and I go way back. Mel is how do we use the term? Search and rescue professional? There's got to be a title, right?
Yes, a canine trainer, handler, instructor in detection, protection, search and rescue.
There we go. I wanted to dot the I's and cross the T's. And I am thrilled to have you on Mediumship Moments. It's part of the series that I'm doing, Mediumship and Murder, which are cases that I've worked on. I talked about that. I had Jonathan Mark, a well-known psychic medium who works on cases as well. And then I wanted to have you on because, again, I'm giving my listeners an opportunity to peek behind the curtain, as I say, to get to meet someone who does this unusual work, what it's like to work a case, your journey through it, and then, to give them an idea of what it's like to work on a case. So for me, Mel, we had talked about your early years, you're very empathic. She's very psychic, everybody. And I swear she uses her intuitive ability and the dog's intuitive ability and the team will get into Tish and you in a minute, but how you use that ability to help you guide and work on cases. So let's take it from the beginning-ish. When you worked on, how did you end up going into this field? What was the catalyst?
Well, it's been a crazy journey, no doubt, but I'll start with there's always been something with the dogs and the animals. And so I remember being in the third grade going to school and I was different, but there was a dog that would come to the school on the playground and hang out with me. He was a stray dog and we would hang out under the staircase at the school during recess and during our breaks. And one day I was in the classroom and here comes the dog. The dog managed to walk through the doors of the school and come into the classroom and he found me. And I found that to be so amazing even at that time, because again, I'm in the third grade, I'm a child and I'm thinking, he just found me in this school, right?
Right.
So from there, my great-grandfather, he had a love for animals and an understanding of their behavior, and I learned so much from him. Fast forwarding a bit.
So it's a family thing, how you can, that innate, that connection with animals.
I believe so. Lots of those traits and characteristics are passed down through us, just like there's breeds or breed specific to certain traits and characteristics as well. And we're animals, we're the same. So I know that he passed on a lot of that to me and his love for horses and working with horses too. And so from there, I ended up, people would somehow just find me and ask me to work with their dogs or their horses. Life continued on. And then one day I was in a parking lot. I had Tish at the time. So I was into the Schützen protection work, lots of tracking. I got into the human remains detection.
So let me back you up for a second. So when you have a dog that does... let me explain. So is it different for canine tracking, than scent detection for cadaver? So is the initial training for animals, how does one start to train a dog? What dogs do you find that are best to work with to do either, is there a certain breed for tracking as opposed to cadaver? If you could highlight some of that for me.
Okay. Well, that depends. Now, I will say Bloodhounds make wonderful trackers. They have these great big ears that are adorable. They hang down. So when the bloodhounds are tracking, these ears help to comb that scent in and keep it contained for them to follow. But then, you have your German Shepherds, your Malinois, your Goldens, your German short-haired pointers. I mean, they're all incredibly talented. When you're training for search and rescue, wilderness tracking, or area search, and there's a difference in that. You need a dog that's going to have that stamina to be able to cover, and again, when you are looking for a person who is live, who is still alive, time is of the essence. So when lives are at stake, you leave nothing to chance. You want a good tracking dog to get in there and do the job.
So Mel, we were talking about, cadaver dogs and training and what breed works best. So you said having stamina. So, your Malinois, the Shepherds, the Goldens have that stamina and that want to please their owners and will work a scene like that. So on cadaver dogs, how is it different? They pick up, obviously, a scent, and they're amazing. I mean, they can, with a fragment, it's just amazing what I've seen, how they work. How is that training different? And how do you get a dog to that point?
Okay, well, so like with search and rescue, or tracking area search work, if someone came to me for training or conditioning in that discipline, we would begin with like runaways, where this person is the actual handler would be running away and going to hide. I would send the dog to go find them. And then we would switch that up to where we're introducing scent articles, and now we're introducing new people to play our victims.
So scent articles would be what? Like something that had the scent of you, the missing person?
Of the missing person. It would belong to the person to whom we were looking for. And
okay.
So we would, show that to the dog and condition that dog to go off and find them. And then you lengthen the mileage, if you will, or your search area grid for that. Now, when you're conditioning the human remains detection dogs, you are working with the dog a bit differently, because now we're using that odor. And so we can use the pseudo scents. You can purchase pseudo scents, or you receive the training to actually have body parts or body fluids or bones. You can use teeth and blood and all sorts of things. And with that, you use that odor and you begin your groundwork with the dog. And then you begin to establish their alert. And so you have your search areas. And so when the dog comes up on that odor and gives you that alert, well, then you reward that dog. And with that,
so what's the alert look like? Hold on. What's the alert look like for a dog with?
Look like, for instance, Tish, my former partner, she would give a sit and a bark.
And what type of breed was she?
She was a German Shepherd, the best.
She was beautiful. Yes.
She really was.
And Tish,
she was phenomenal.
You two, you have spoken about her in the lectures you've done and the book you've written and all of that, because she was just, you have that favorite or that dog that you're such in sync with. And Tish was it. So she would sit and she would bark.
Yes.
Now that was for cadaver. If she had a hit for a missing person, would it be the same kind of indicator, or would she do something different?
Well, Tish was human remain. Now she would do, tracking, and they, she would find me anywhere, but she was not cross-trained with search and rescue and human remains. And that is an area where I know a lot of people do that. I don't agree with that. I feel like it's a conflict, and it can be a liability in the field, especially if, sometimes cases end up in court. And you need to be able to stand with your dog. Hey, my dog is solid this way, right? And that would take us off into a whole nother area. But so a lot of times, your search and rescue dogs, they will do recalls where the dog is working ahead of the handler. They find the person that needed to be found, and then the dog will leave that person and come back to the handler and continue that behavior until they've led the person there safely.
I've seen that. And it is just amazing. I was working on a case with somebody who went missing, who had Alzheimer's, and that's exactly, as you spoke of, what the dog did in the field. Out she went, and sometimes they have a tether type of leather leash. Sometimes they just put a halter on them, or a vest that says search, or a GPS collar in this case, that you can look on a little iPad and see where the dog is headed. And when that dog sat and then came back, indicated that, and came back, it was just interesting how they beelined it right to us. And you could see on the GPS how she went through the woods, over the water, to get to us.
Really fascinating.
It was amazing to watch. So, and I'm sorry for stepping on your toes, because I find this fascinating. I love dogs, and I love and I love, learning about this, because not many people understand the years of training that goes in to it. It's not just, you take a class, 6 weeks, get a patch, out you go. It's a lifelong. It's a lot of time and energy to put in. And it's amazing. I have worked with volunteer groups here in the tri-state area who come out for search and rescue. The case that I worked on with Shane Montgomery, and the dogs came out, and they were fascinating to work with. I've worked almost every case, I think. It's either been a volunteer through a search and rescue organization, or with the state police, Cadaver dogs. And, they work a little bit differently, and I'll just say that, but that's okay. They have a process, and, all good. So Tish was strictly just Cadaver dogs.
Yes. And
Okay.
protection. She was dual purpose.
Oh, she was. Okay.
Yeah, she was protection. She was wonderful. She was, but yeah, she was human remains detection, and she was fine tuned. So she could find anything, but you could have a body part in a training field and have it with put road kills, other odors all around it. You could
to mask
you
it.
could
Yeah.
put pizza or anything, other things, from dead animals and stuff. She would walk over all of that and go straight to she would find the tiniest little drop of human decomposition. She was absolutely phenomenal. And, it isn't just the German Shepherds, though. So many of my contracts over the years, and even government people, I would train dogs, provide the dogs for those who were holding governmental contracts for various different things. A lot of times, even they would tell me, it's okay, shelter dogs can apply. So I would go out and I would go to our shelters, or I would find people, or it's crazy. Sometimes they would just find me, hey, do you need a working dog? We've got this dog here being fostered, or this dog, it meets the criteria. So I was able to pull in a lot of shelter dogs too.
Were you? That's fantastic. Yeah. My last, our current puppy, and I say our last Airedale because they're a fabulous breed, but they are big and a little tough to travel with, is a rescue. And I just think if you can, take a rescue dog and give them that type of opportunity, wonderful. So, so you have Tish, and you trained her for both protection, which is security, right? And here's a question. The Oklahoma bombing?
Yeah.
That happened. Okay. Did you happen to know anybody who worked, or have you worked on a case, any cases that we might know that you can,
from
if
here.
you share?
Yeah. From here. Yes. And 9/11 too. All horrible. The Hurricane Katrina, even. So the handlers would reach out to me
Okay.
Asking questions, seeking guidance, things like that while they were deployed in those situations. Thankfully, I did not have to go
Okay.
through any of that trauma. And that
Okay.
and that is something that and it is, those things are traumatizing for the dogs and for the handlers, and
Oh,
oftentimes things like that, especially in disasters, those things aren't talked about a whole lot. But when you're sitting here and you have handlers that are deployed in the midst of such disasters such as Hurricane Katrina, it was terrible. It was
yeah.
terrible.
I can't imagine. And they, like you said, the psychological, emotional, and physical uh, toll that it took on both the handlers and the dogs had to just been, and that's the thing that people don't realize. When I go out to work a case, there's this emotional toll or imprint, and I say that that happens. That I, I try not to take work home with me, but when you're out looking for someone's father and who reminds you of your dad, or someone's child and reminds you of your child, like those types of cases that you carry with you. So let's talk about you and I working together,
Yes.
and what that was like. You're smiling from ear to ear. It was something. So tell me about how that happened. You were on a case,
Yes, I
and
was on a case
it's a
working.
Pacific Northwest case. We can say that
Yes,
because the
it
case is
was,
still open. So for anybody listening,
right,
we
right.
are trying to bite our tongues and give you enough of an understanding of what it's like to work with a handler, a cadaver dog, and a medium when they're working on a missing persons case. So we're gonna do
Right.
our
So,
best.
yeah. So yes, the case is still open. Unfortunately, yes,
Mm.
this was a Pacific Northwest case, and I'd been hired to. It was I was hired by someone who was high profile. So this case, I knew there would be media, lots of attention. And in working with the particular state departments, your parks and recreation, that I didn't expect that. I wasn't expecting it to work the way that it did. I was expecting it to be the way that it would be here. I'd be working with deputies and detectives and like in other places, right? And they
You're
were
in
like,
Eureka Springs, Arkansas,
I,
currently.
that's where I am now, yes.
Yeah,
And so it didn't work out that way. And they were like, no, you've got the clearance. You just do this. And if you need us, give us a call. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So there was a lot of logistics to figure out. And at that time, I was, I had a spinal cord injury
yeah.
and I could
Mhm.
not work with Tish. There's no way I could cover the territory. This is one of the largest state parks in this particular state that needed to be covered. And so I was able to hire some people to come in and assist. And that was when I found, and I can say his name here, Mike Lewick from Texas. He was with a task force there in Texas. He's phenomenal. He was my hands, my feet, my mind. I
Was
knew
he?
if I needed to take a break or what, he's got this. And so
Okay.
it was wonderful having him. We brought in security, and Mike helped me to pull in some of the most phenomenal handlers in our country
Wow.
with their dogs to come in, and we sectioned it all off, and they covered the territory. And as you know, the person we were looking for was not there. And that was where you came in. The family had hired you, and then they contacted me and told me they had hired you and asked if I would be willing to come back to that particular state and work with you, furthering the investigation. What a wonderful opportunity that was. And then I met a soul sister from another mister.
That's correct. We share the same birthday. Yes, that's why we say that. Absolutely.
Yes. And,
Absolutely.
and then we met, and we met there with the family, and I can clearly remember you being adamant about telling us, don't say anything, don't tell me anything, don't tell me anything. And I admired that so much because I have worked with other psychics before on cases, and not everyone, as we know, is authentic, and they will press you for that information. They want to get what they can to use that for their gender, for whatever. And you were the complete opposite. You were like, I don't want to know anything, I don't need to know anything, don't tell me. And so from there, we got up the next morning after spending time with the family, and we met downstairs at the little restaurant, and I don't need to remember the name of it.
That's true.
That was the sweetest little place.
It was.
And with the best peanut butter coffee I've ever had on the planet.
This is true.
It was divine.
We lived off of coffee that week, didn't we?
We sure did. From there, and at the time, you were unaware of the details of where we had met in regards to how that related to this particular case.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were in the midst of the location. You had picked that hotel, so it logistically would be me leaving the hotel and being right within, that area. And when I work cases, like you had said, you'd worked with other mediums. I say this, we all work differently. I use both my psychic ability, which is my ability to track energy and to see these photographs, and psychic imprints, which are like just that, the footprint, psychological footprint, or physical imprint of a location. So that's why I wanted to be taken to certain places so I could see that, if you will, movie clips of what I picked up psychically. The mediumship part, connecting with that person, if that person had crossed over when I was present with the family members, they may have came through, which is why when I work a case, I will do psychic first, and I would never do it on our initial meeting, but at a later subsequent time, then want to sit with the family members to see if there's a connection there, either through the person that's missing or a family member who's crossed will tell me, like, for instance, Shane Montgomery's case. I could see him on the other side when I sat with the family member, but it was the grandmother, Veronica, who came through, and she chatted with me and told me things about him, both physically, she showed me, and she showed me where his location was. The two of them did, but she was like the chatty grandmother taking care. She said I had to be 3 boys with me, and she had 2 boys that crossed young in age who were close in age to Shane. So enough about me, but that's kind of how I work a case, and that's why I wanted to not know anything, because I'm human, right? I'm a mom. There but for the grace of God go I, is what I say when I work cases, or the mission statement at PSI, Psychic Studies and Investigations. So you and I meet, we go, and what was that like working with me, working the case?
Well, it was an amazing experience for me. It was just an honor to deploy and work with you.
I feel the same way. Go ahead.
We
You're
walked, thank you. We walked out of the little restaurant, one of the best coffee shops on the planet is what we walked out of. And you said, well, okay, where to? and I said, well, we're here and you get to work. From there, I let you be in front of me, and I gave you, it was like I was flanking with a handler and a dog. I want to be 6+ feet back behind you. to allow you to spend, not interfere with the energetic vibe or realm or anything. Do your thing, Kim. I'm watching you. And it was phenomenal. You walked, and again, I want to express again to your listeners and viewers, you had no idea of these things. None. You did not know. And we walk out of the little coffee shop, and I give you the leeway, and you go and you walked the exact path. And this is downtown, in a downtown environment. You walked this person's exact path. And we continued down the road on the sidewalk, and then you crossed over right where she crossed over. And then it gets better. Then you take me straight into the grocery store that this person had walked into, and you walked the exact path that was taken. And you went the exact path all the way to the back of the store, looped around, and then right down the aisle that person walked, and then took me straight to the register where this person had checked out, and then took me out of the store. And then you took a right, which was exactly what she did. And then it was, further up there then that, we had to go other places to look for her because,
and that's and I appreciate that. And this is what I love about working with you, is that because you're so highly trained with animals and know that intuitiveness, like if they're, I often say I am like a scent dog, but energetically I follow their energy path. And I've done this in the Andrew Jarrett case up in Hoboken, New Jersey. I've done it with Shane Montgomery. The cases that I work on, I tend to be pulled. And it's quite literally like that for me, where I'm walking along and it's like, okay, I got to make a right. And that's what I feel. So, and again, not knowing anything about the case, didn't want to know anything. I was vetted by a family member before we went out, who had known about my abilities in cases here. And then once we got there, met with the parents, I may have sat with some psychic things, some of their belongings, and then started to give them some pieces. And that's what I say. I can give you a piece, when I work with the authorities, I give you a piece of the puzzle. You're trained to put the puzzle together. That's not, I know my lane, and I say that lovingly. But if I give you specific information, there's a reason why I'm pulled this way. There's a reason why I'm seeing this. And it's interesting, when you talked about working with me, I had worked on a case, Mel, and it was the guy that headed up the search and rescue. And this is after I worked with you. And it was bitter cold. And we were looking for a man that went missing. And there was a search and rescue. So there's a big, tall guy who headed up. And then his name was Tim. And then there was a volunteer that worked. And I'll call him the professor, because that's what he looked like. He was a smaller stature man with a mustache. And as we're walking and I'm seeing pictures in my head psychically, those pictures I talked about where he went, and I wanted to go search this area, and they had done a preliminary search. And I said, we're going to find him today, because the pictures I was getting it was like I was watching a movie. And it wasn't being braggadocious. I was like, we're going to find him. Well, the professor kept saying, we went that way. He's not, we can't, he's not there. We're not. And I finally turned to Tim and I was like, listen, I can't work with him energetically because he keeps telling me no. And he's very black and white. I said, this is not black and white. I need y'all to have an open heart and an open mind when you sit with me. Let me tell you what I see. Let's walk this journey together. Everything's a possibility. So the professor, we made him go up to the bridge. I head over. I kept seeing, what thicket looks like, with the bush. And it kind of looked like an onion. And I had to walk through that. Not more than 15 minutes. I walked through the thicket down this path to the thicket, to the water's edge, and we found his body.
Wow.
And it's not about me. It's more I kept seeing it and had to be with somebody who could work with me. And you were a delight. You were an absolute, there was never an issue of me going, I can't work with Mel. Oh, she shut me down.
I can't work with this kid, Durham.
Now, and I was so thankful that we worked so well together for never working together. You know what I'm saying? It was so easy. So we walked out. Yeah, we walked out of that location, and they tease ER nurses and docs. You sometimes have a bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A sense of humor that may be a little dark, and it was so easy to work together that I kept saying, if we find something else that's not what we're looking for, they're going to hate us, because of where we went. Because at the time, in that region was the Green River Valley murderer, and they were finding bodies out where we were searching. So you remember that, working with me that way. Any other memories step out for you?
Of working with you, I just thought it was just such a, you hate the circumstances for which you're deployed. You hate those. But it truly was a remarkable experience to work with someone, to work with you, who's so professional and detail oriented, who works energetically. Is the only way I know, who feels their way through things, who's open-minded, can step away from the book. That for me, it was intriguing. It was just like I said, it was a wonderful experience for me, knowing the information that I had that was privy to this particular case. You did not have that information, and we were working together as if we had been partners, not only for a decade, but as if you were privy to every bit of the information that I had with me, and you weren't, but it was if we were. And that's great. People try to develop good, strong working relationships, and they'll spend years trying to do it. And the universe really chose us wisely and really blessed us with that opportunity to be able to work together.
And I feel blessed to have been able to do it. It was amazing. You had worked on several cases that were high profile. You are quite literally the OG when it comes to search and rescue and cadaver. People, reach out all over the United States and all over the world to seek your advice about how to work a case and what to do and how to go about it. And it's you have that, you're meeting with the family, you're asking for possessions that they wore. When I work a case, I ask for certain things. I always say, keep it in a plastic bag, because I don't want my scent to contaminate anything that you're giving me. And I keep everything individual in plastic bags. So I never really touch it. I just have the energy of it. When I'm working on a case out in Pittsburgh, I went into the evidence room and they brought it into the conference room. And, you can't, it's a murder case. You can't unwrap something, and I can just energetically touch the packaging and start to see pictures. And we led them to, I believe, where the suspects live, and I drew pictures, although they made fun of my pictures because my mom was the artist. I'm not. But then but I was thrilled that I could work this case with you. You had some health issues with the spinal cord, had arachnoidosis. Is that it?
Arachnoiditis. Yes, I had a spinal cord injury that left me with adhesive arachnoiditis. And that pulled me, obviously, that altered my life for a good minute. Pulled me out of the field. I was no longer teaching or instructing, taking on handlers and dogs. And
But do you
That's
think
been
you'll
a
go back
journey.
to teaching?
Yeah,
I,
I'm
ju-
on my
I,
way. Yeah.
yeah, I see you step, and I'm not trying to psychically read you, but it's almost like, you had to stop.
I had other things I
Uh,
needed to do and take on.
yes, exactly.
And it's taking a very bad, horrific situation and finding that good in it, allowing one to heal and to strive on. And the journey has certainly been blessed. I've met so many wonderful humans on this planet. Oh my word, who I just have the utmost admiration for them. The levels of
And you
pain.
started a foundation. You were the founder of
Well,
which,
I became a delegate to the International Pain Foundation. And then in the midst of the spinal cord injury, right before it happened, I was in the process of developing a nonprofit and growing from there. All of that just got put on hold. I ended up moving, and life kind of took over for a minute and said, "Oh, no, no, no. Wait a minute. Wait a minute." So there's been a lot of advocacy work, a lot of oh gosh, I'm creating just some of the most wonderful friendships with people who live with arachnoiditis and CRPS. That would be chronic regional pain syndrome, also known
right?
as RSD. And so that led me to the International Pain Foundation. I was a delegate for them. Barbie Ingalls, wonderful. And then ended up with her. She called me up one day and she said, "Mel, you need to be the founder of Arachnoiditis Awareness Month. There isn't anything about it." And I was like, what? So she helped me through that process. I became the founder of Arachnoiditis Awareness Month.
And I think that's, I call you a pit bull in Yorkie clothing. Okay. You may be small of stature, but you are a mighty force. And if there's anybody to head up this foundation and to get it up and running and to bring some light to it, it's you. And maybe, I say this, I was very successful in what I was doing in the operating room and loved it. But somebody had a bigger plan for me and had to take major steps to get my butt out of the OR and put me here doing the work I'm doing. So whomever you may believe that is, I think the same type of force happened for you. And now, that you've gained some healing, both mind, body, and spirit, you're now going to be, I keep seeing you in front of a classroom and teaching, and I see PowerPoint presentations, and I see you being able to pass along the knowledge of your training in dog rescue and cadaver dogs. And it's just amazing.
I have greatly missed working with the dogs and
Yes.
the dogs and their people. I have greatly missed that. I really have. It's been a blessing. I've really been blessed with some of the most phenomenal, beautiful humans on the planet as clients, and their dogs. Man, it just fills my heart.
Yeah, you were talking about certain conditions that children had that you trained dogs for. And it's amazing. They train them for everything, even including celiac, which I have. And I'm like, it's amazing to see how these dogs can be trained, that cancer detection. In fact, they're actually at Penn. You and I talked about it. Penn just came out with a study that their dogs are detecting a rare form of cancer, a canine cancer. So dogs are connecting and actually being used to detect cancer in other dogs, which I just think is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Before we pivot, I wanted to ask you this. There's a well-known case right now out there. And by the time this airs, I hope there's a positive resolution. And I wanted to just touch upon, people have asked me about the Guthrie case and Nancy Guthrie. And, you and I talked off camera that detectives, private investigators, the trackers, mediums, we all keep our cards close to our chest. I'm working a case in South Jersey, and the PI isn't telling the family because him and I know why. And so all I will say is that, when people ask me about this, that I don't tell them what I feel because I don't want to shed light or give a misstep or say anything publicly that could hamper their investigation. But I wanted to touch upon your expertise that in those first 48 hours, what would it be like if you were brought into a case and somebody was kidnapped or missing? What would that look like for your part?
Okay. Well, on my part, I can tell you from experience that a lot of times in looking in at everything else that's going on, I would be looking in at a bit of chaos for a minute while everyone's trying to figure out what do we need to do here. And that can be overwhelming and challenging because everyone has their opinions on, this way or that way or this. And a lot of times they're all wrong. I have found, or it just doesn't apply, perhaps. I do also feel like in time, I think things are progressing. So things are being handled differently in cases. You learn, there's just always so much to learn. The first 48 hours are crucial. The first 24 are even more crucial. Obviously, every minute is crucial to situations like that. And when someone goes missing, it depends upon, or did they walk off or were they taken? There's so many questions that one's going to run through, and then you're going to establish this area. And okay, so I'm called out, someone's been taken from their home. You can pull your dogs in. You can see if that dog is going to track them to a vehicle, because if they were left by a vehicle, well, is the dog a good seasoned dog would be able to show us that path of travel, perhaps, and then you're checking your cameras and all of those things leading into that. And then, of course, you have all of these other things that can come in too, because now you have to work through the probabilities of your person of interest as well.
Let me ask you this real quick, just because it's because you're reminding me. I'm working on a case that I led them to the same area that the dogs lost the scent. Are there different because of water? Are your dogs trained differently?
Well, the cadaver dogs, or even a live dog, somebody breaks out of prison or whatever, and then they go trekking through the woods and stuff, and then they hop off in a creek, and then they're floating down. Well, so this is what's happening. As we're taking off through the woods or the forest, whatever. So we're shedding skin rafts like the whole way. That's what the dog is picking up on. So now when we introduce water into the equation, well, then you have a whole conglomerate of different types of situations, from drownings or to just say there's a creek or something and someone's going to go through that. The dog should be able to work through that. Obviously, if you have a huge body of water, could be a little different. But even with that, if you're looking for a live person or even a deceased, you get the dogs. They have to be training for this, though. You can put your dogs in the water on a boat, and you can work them, and they can pick up off the vegetation while the person took off over here and come out of the water. Now, if you're dealing with a cadaver, a drowned, say a drowning, whether it be by accident or not, our particles are going to emit to the surface, to the top of that water. And that's what the dogs are going to smell.
Are going to pick up. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the case in the Guthrie case. I kind of interjected that question because I've had situations where I've been out with a cadaver dog. They're in a boat. I was in a golf cart going around, and it's interesting to see that work. But taking you back, I'm sorry to get you off kilter, is that the first 24 hours are critical to work a parameter, to have dogs on site. And A lot of those cases, and in this case, there is that they have connections of both finances to be able to afford it. For somebody who can't afford it, I would recommend, and I hope you would, to seek out the local search and rescues in your county, because this is a volunteer group that can come in that first critical 24 hours, get the dog on that scent, and start to work the scene, which is difficult because, as you said, it is so chaotic. There's the family members are rushing, and there's 10 people pulling you in 10 different directions. And I have seen it myself. You have seen it. And that's the most critical time to be focused, to have one point person. I usually it's a fire chief or somebody who's got grid work experience, that when they bring me, and that's the thing, I'll work with the EMS, the fire chief, like they know how to work a scene. It's not that I don't want to be with the family, but that frenetic, confusing, sad energy, it's almost like masking the environment for me.
Yeah, it can become an interference. It truly can.
So, with the search and rescues, that if there's a missing person, we have a lot of people with Alzheimer's. We have silver alerts. They finally passed here in the state of New Jersey, and they, can now initiate within 24 hours getting that alert up for them, because it's so critical, that the first 24 hours. I've had situations where we found somebody who hadn't driven in 10 years, grabbed the keys with just a T-shirt and shorts on and socks, got behind the wheel, and off he went missing.
And went on a road trip. I've had 2 other cases, similar people with cognitive type of disabilities, and we haven't found them yet. And I just say that, if you've got somebody out there that's missing, Mel will always take a phone call, God love her, out in Eureka Springs. To help deploy out with it.
Yeah, you're absolutely available, right, for consulting, and I think that's a tremendous
available for consulting. Yes,
to reach out. So either reach out to me at kimdorham.com, and I can direct you to Mel to work on the case. My heart and prayers, and truly that they can resolve the Guthrie case as quickly and as happy. That they bring her home. And that's what I wish for them. And I appreciate you giving me some input on that. Mel, this has been delightful. I could, girl, we get together, we just sit and talk, and
I know.
And I love it. And I'm going to get down there. We're going to make hell freeze over.
Okay.
Because I love to do some paranormal investigating. And gosh knows, that place is jumping down there. So I'm going to talk to my paranormal PSI team and see if we can take a road trip. Mel, thank you for your time, your energy to be on Mediumship Moments. I very much appreciate it. I wish you all the very best. All right. Stay well until we
Thank you so much,
get to chat again.
It's been an honor to be here with you.
Much love to you, Mel.
Much
Bye
love.
for now.
Bye-bye, Kim.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kim's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kim Dorham Medium.